Let's have a look at what's new in WordPress 6.4. Hi there, my name is Bud Kraus for InstaWP, and let's start with the big picture here. WordPress 6.4 is the third of 3 major releases in 2023, and it's being led by an underrepresented gender release team, and that's the second time that's happened in WordPress history. There are hundreds of performance upgrades, security enhancements, and accessibility improvements, not to mention all the bug fixes that is in this release. And it comes with a shiny new default theme 2024, which is what I'm going to be using during the demonstrations in this video. Now for you developers, here are some of the changes that you'll probably want to pay attention to. First of all, there's an interactivity API, which I'm going to show you 2 examples of. There's a block hook API. Now, if you're familiar with how WordPress works with its hooks, this gives you the ability to insert block code as a child element into a template part, or a pattern. And there's a user block editing mode. Now, this is block locking in essence, and that is there are 3 different modes. One is the disable mode, where the end user, or content creator actually, cannot change the content of a block, nor move it or remove it. And then there's also a content mode, and that's where a content creator can change the content, but they can't edit or remove the block. And finally, there is a default mode, which is what we're familiar with now, which is the user can do anything with a block, change the content, remove it, move it, and so forth. There's also an improved method for script handling. No doubt that will be a performance enhancer. And there's new admin notice functionality. Now for you creators or end users, well, let's have a look at these right over here. There's an enhanced command palette, and the command palette works a lot like Spotlight Search for an iMac, which gives you the ability to execute commands in a text box. And you can do that anywhere in Gutenberg, whether it's on a page or a post or within the site editor. It really speeds up the workflow process. And there's no more media attachment pages. Say goodbye to that for any new WordPress installation. So these are things that I'm not going to be demonstrating during this video. Well, what am I going to be showing you? Well, let's take a look here. First, some of the design tool enhancements. I'll also show you 2 examples of the interactivity API in action. We'll have a look at some of the site editor upgrades that are of note. Of course, the quality of life improvements that always come with any major WordPress release. And the new default theme 2024, which some people are saying is the best WordPress default theme ever. So let's have a look at WordPress 6.4. Whenever there's a major release of WordPress, you can expect there to be design tool enhancements, and that's certainly the case in WordPress 6.4. So for this demonstration, I'm going to be working in the site editor. So I have a block theme, and it is 2024. But you should note that since I'm going to be working with the group block and the navigation block, anything that you see here can be used wherever you see the group block or the navigation block. So let's go over to patterns. And I'm going to change the header. So I'm going to go over to the header, and I'm going to click on this over here. And what I'm going to do is, again, work with the group block and the navigation block for this demonstration to show you some of the new design tool enhancements in WordPress 6.4. And let's just see what we have here. We've got a group block, and we have inside there the navigation block. So for the group block, something new is the ability to add a background image. For that, I'm going to click over here on the style icon. And right over here, this is new, background image. And I am going to go into my media library. I'm going to select this image over here. So I want to change the height of this. So for that, I will scroll down over here and use this slider over here to reveal more of the image. As you can see over here, again, this is the background image, which I just changed using the minimum height adjuster. Now, one of the things I can't adjust is the background position of the image. I suspect we will see that in future versions of WordPress. If I want to use a different unit of measurement, I have these over here, percentage and M units and rem units and so forth, but I'm going to leave it with pixels. And that's all there's to it. Now you might be saying, but we can already do that with cover block. Yes, but there are slightly different controls on the cover block compared to the group block. So do take note of that. Also, I believe this is going to be the beginning of being able to add a background image to most any block in WordPress. Now for the second enhancement, I want to show you this. In the navigation, we can now put in a button block inside of our navigation. So not just links or not just the search tool block, but also now buttons. So for this, I'm going to go over here, click on this, and you can see right over here, buttons. And I am going to add my button right over here. And now that I have that in there, let's open this up over here. I'm going to change it to login. And now I'm going to add the link for this button right over here. And it's just a login page that I have set up already. And let's change the link text to it. And I'm going to save this. And let's see what we have. And now let's refresh what we have here so we can actually see the new header. And there we go. It's just what I want. I've got my button block right inside the navigation block, and this gives my navigation a nice professional look. Now one other design tool enhancement is the use of vertical text. Let's have a look at that. So here I am in my page editor, and you can see that I have a heading block right over here, and I want to change the alignment of this text. There's a very simple way to do that. Select the text as I have it right over here. You can see it's heading. I'm going to go right over here to typography, 3 dots, and there's now an option to change the text orientation. Select that and go right over here and click on this little icon over here. You can now see, very simple, that the text has been vertically aligned. I believe this option is available for any text block now in WordPress. And if vertical text is your thing, you now have a really easy way to do it. Let me show you 2 examples of the Interactivity API in use. And right now there are only 2, but no doubt as time goes on, more and more developers will be using the Interactivity API. The first of the 2 is the Lightbox effect. So here I have a gallery. If I click on this image, let's say over here, you can see I have a Lightbox effect. That is a zooming in of the image. Same thing over here. And same thing over here with this image. But if I click on this image, or this image, or this image, nothing happens. And if I go down over here, here's a single image, and I have the Lightbox effect for this. So what's going on behind the scenes? How can I do this? Here we have the gallery, and if I just select this image over here in the gallery, remember every image in a gallery is just treated as a single image. You can see over here I've selected the expand to click toggle to get the Lightbox effect. You can see that this has not been toggled. Now note, this is the default mode. That is, if you don't do anything, you won't have expand to click. Same thing down over here. This one has been selected, and that's why we saw a minute ago the Lightbox effect. Now the second of these 2 is the enhanced pagination. Let's have a look at that. And so for that example, I'm going to click on over here blog, and we'll see I have 2 different query loops going on this page. One is a query loop for the scenes category, and one is for the food category. Now let's look at what happens here when I click on pagination down over here. Let's say next page. Now you're going to have to watch this very carefully. There's no page reloading over here. I'll click this over here, and the page did not reload. However, over here, I'm going to scroll down and click next page, and the page does reload. And I go back to over here. And by the way, that's how WordPress worked until now. That is, we now have this ability to have enhanced pagination. Let's go behind the scenes and see how this works. I'm going to open this up over here, and if I just go into my list view, let's have a look at that query loop block. For the first column. Here's the query loop, and I'm going to go over here to the right, and you will see right down over here I've selected, or I've toggled on, enhanced pagination, which means that the browser is not going to do a full page reload when clicked. That's exactly what happened. Now over here in the second column, in that second example over here, query loop, let's take a look at this over here, and we'll see this has not been selected. And that's the reason why the page does reload. So that's up to you as a user if you want to use this or not, but that is new, and that's an example of the interactivity API. Over time, I think we're going to see many more examples of it in use. There are some significant changes to the site editor in WordPress 6.4. I'm going to continue to use the 2024 theme, which is a block theme, meaning all aspects of the site can be created and edited through the use of blocks. So let's go into Appearance. Let's go into the site editor. And the first thing I want to show you is right over here in Styles. Let's click on this over here. We'll see a Styles icon over here. That's not new, but what is new is this icon right over here, Revisions. And you can see there have been a total of 15 revisions so far, 15 saved revisions to the global styling of my site. So I'm going to click on this over here, and if I scroll down here, this is where it all began about 6 days ago. And if I scroll up to the top, these are listed in the order most recently saved. One of the nice things too is that you can see these are all done by me, but here are two that were done by InstaWP. Let's take a look. If I just click on any one of these, let's see if we can see any changes. There we go. That's a noticeable change. Anytime I cycle through any of these revisions, I can click on Apply if I want to revert back to an earlier version of the styling for my site. One of the important things to note here is that this really ushers in the future of the Gutenberg project, that is phase 3, which we should start to see in WordPress 6.5, and that's the ability to collaborate with others in real time. Now let's have a look at another aspect of the site editor which has changed, and that is there's a lot of work being done in the patterns area and the workflow when working with patterns. And this theme, 2024, has a lot of different patterns. You can see 37. And here are all the different categories of patterns. I'm going to click on Gallery. And what's kind of interesting here is you can see there isn't much to see, right? Well, not really. It's kind of hard to tell here. But these blank ones over here actually have, here we go. You can see that there's sort of like placeholders over here where the images are going to go. Same thing with this one over here, and same thing with this over here. I'm going to create a pattern that's just like that, where we're just going to be using placeholders and then filling those placeholders in with images. So how do you do that? Well, let's start with a new pattern, and we're going to say Create Pattern, and I'm going to give it a name. Bud's Pattern. And then I am going to assign it a category. Now, these categories came with the theme. I can create my own categories if I want, but I'm going to use one that already exists, and since I'm going to be creating a gallery, it would make sense. Now, here again, I can create my own categories or actually add more categories to this one pattern, but this will suffice. And I'm going to use the galleries category here. Now I'm going to use a group block, so let's get started with that as I create my custom pattern. And within this group block, I'm going to add a columns block, and this one should suffice right over here. I'm going to use list view now, and right above the columns block I want to insert an image. So we're going to do add before, and let's just put in an image. Now I'm not going to actually put in an image in here. I'm going to do a placeholder, and that's definitely new in this version of WordPress. So what do I mean? So you can see that I've highlighted the image area, but now if I go over here and take a look at the block for image, here's something that's new. Aspect ratio. And I am going to select one of these right over here. Now, I should say that the idea of selecting or choosing an aspect ratio for an image, that in itself is not new. What is new is the implementation of this in the site editor. So I am going to select square, and that will be fine. Now, that's rather big, but that's okay. And now over here in the first column, I'm going to insert right here image. That's fine. And we're going to leave this. Well, before we do any further, let's get rid of this so we can see this a little bit better. Here we are. And we're going to change the aspect ratio for this to 4:3. And now in this column over here, I'm going to put in an image. And I'm going to change this one to 16:9. That's good. And that's really it. What I have are 3 image placeholders in my pattern. I'm going to save it, and now I'm going to use it. So I'm going to go out here, and now let's create a page so that we can use that pattern. So I'm going to go over here, add new, and you can see all these patterns pop up. Let me see, is my pattern in here? It doesn't seem to be, but that's okay. I'm going to get out of here, and let's just call this new gallery. And for this, now I can get my pattern in one of 2 ways. One is just to put this in here like so. You can see Bud's pattern, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to do it really another way. And this is not new with WordPress 6.4. This has been around for quite a while. And I'm going to go right over here to patterns. My pattern. Here we go. And now my pattern's been inserted into the page. But one thing I want to do before I do anything else, and that is, let's have a look at list view. And we're using a pattern, but I want to detach this pattern so that whenever I use it, I won't be changing the pattern itself. And I do that by going over here and detach pattern. Now I'm good to go. One other thing I think I'm going to do is go right over here, choose another image right over here. Let's just use this one here. And I'm also going to put this one in over here like so. Let's use this one like this. And to get a better view of this, let's get out of the list view, and we'll see this a little bit better. Now, I did put this in a group block, so I am going to now access the group block, and I'm going to add a background color here to make the group block a little easier to see. Okay, and let's have a look. And that's not bad. Now, you can see that I'm just playing around with the idea of using a reusable pattern. And I used placeholders instead of actual images. And the advantage of doing that is that I don't have to swap out the images. All I have to do is just put the image in, and away I go. I like that idea. One other thing that's new here, or at least improved, is the ability to import and export your patterns. Let's have a look at that. So for that, I'm going to go into the site editor again. I'm going to go into patterns. And one nice thing about 6.4 is that it's easy to go to my patterns like so. Now I've created this pattern, and if I want to edit this pattern, of course I can change it. If I want to export this, it couldn't be simpler. All I have to do is click on this, and I could export this as a JSON file. But now I want to import a pattern from another website using a different theme. That's pretty easy to do. I'm just going to click on import. I'm going to choose a file over here, and now I am going to import. Now I'm going to need to reload the page to see my entry, and there it is. And if I click on this, here's the pattern, and of course I can go ahead and edit this. This is really great. So you can swap patterns from one site to another, and it doesn't really matter what theme you're using. So long as you are using a block theme, it will be really easy to export and import patterns. Quality of life improvements can be really hard to detect because they can be very subtle. A lot of times they're there to improve the writing experience in WordPress, and that's certainly the case in WordPress 6.4, as well as some of the performance changes, like how fast templates load and how easy it is to move from one section of the user interface to another. But these quality of life improvements are really obvious, but I don't want you to miss them. And let's start right over here. So now, whenever we add an image, whether it's in a gallery or an individual image, we're going to see these little thumbnails right over here. That's kind of nice. Look at this. So you can see each one. And you click on it, of course, it gets highlighted. Same thing with this one right over here, this individual. There we go. Now, you can also change the name of the group block. That's new. And if I go right over here and I click into rename, maybe I want to name this top group, and you can see it now says top group, so it's a little more definitive than just saying group. I think eventually you're going to be able to change the names of all the blocks in the list view. Now for the final change that is not to be missed is right over here, and this is kind of a good one here. So if I click on this over here, you can see that the paragraph is a child of the quote block. And previously, the way this worked is that every time you click into one of these child blocks, the toolbar would cover up the surrounding text. No more. As you can see right over here, whenever I select one of these paragraphs, the toolbar sits above, and it makes it a lot easier to read and to work with. What you're looking at here is 2024, the new default theme that comes with WordPress 6.4. And flexible is absolutely the name of the game because you can use this theme for anything. Now, they do bill it as a theme that's made for entrepreneurs, photographers, and bloggers, but go ahead and use this for e-commerce shops, membership sites, simple blogs, anything you want. This theme is going to be very good. Now, over here in templates, let's have a look. And specifically, I want to look at the search template just to give us a little feel for how this looks. And here are these rounded corners, which seem to be the default look for this theme when it comes to images. Over here in patterns, and there are plenty of patterns with 2024. Let's look at the full page template, and right over here, the landing page. And as with any block theme, you can change all elements of your site with the use of blocks. You're not married to any particular design. This is just to show you some of the possibilities with 2024. Let's take a look at the style variations. There are 8 of them. All these can be changed. And we'll take a look at this over here. Oh, that's the Lightbox effect. And finally, over here in demos, you see entrepreneur, photographer, and blogger. Let's just have a look at blogger. And so this is the blog archive page and the styling that goes with it in the default theme. And of course, this can be changed, but you can see they sort of brought back the sidebar here. And if you don't want the sidebar, that can be removed. If we want to just take a look at one of the posts, we'll look over here. And it's very simple. And of course, you can add a featured image and do whatever you want. 2024, the new default theme, very simple, lightweight, loads fast, and certainly flexible and customizable. So what can we say about WordPress 6.4? Well, it's a smaller release. Yes, it's a major release, but small because there wasn't a lot of time between the last release, that is 6.3, and now. Certain things like the font library was left out and new blocks. I suspect we're going to be seeing that in WordPress 6.5. But we did see enhancements to the design tools and the site editor, and a winding down of Gutenberg Phase 2, that is the work on the site editor. And 6.4 is definitely getting us ready for the next phase, Phase 3 of the Gutenberg project, the collaboration phase, which we should really start to see in WordPress 6.5. So stay tuned.